So let's navigate to our report. Again, we will navigate using the prefix party and then W. Let's see which report we want. Now employee details. Right, let's work with that. Employee details report. Now, what we are trying to do here is. Alright, so let's try to create a calculated field, which will give us some information about this length of service. Right, the length of service that we have. So we have a few people who are 0 years experienced, right? So what did we see? The minimum we saw was like 0 years and a maximum for some workers. We saw 122 years. Okay, well, although that is not a realistic number, but at least in this tenant we have something like that. So can we categorize these workers into? I mean, can we put some labels to them like maybe 0 to? Maybe 10 years. Right, we call them something from 11. 220 years. Right, we call them, maybe give them a different name. And 21 to 30. Yes. We tell them something, and then greater than 30. Like, let's say 30 plus. Correct? Can we do something like this? Let's decide on some labels. So what can we call something which is 0 to 10 years? Amateurs, right? Newcomers. What can we say? What can we call them? Somebody who has 10 years of experience. I don't want to call them thoughtless. They won't like it. Anything else? Amateurs would still be harsh because, okay, let's make it a little bit smaller than 7 years, 0 to 7, and this is maybe 8 to 15. Right, 8 to 15, and then this is 16 to 30 and 30 plus, right, so 0 to 7. What can we call them? Amateurs. Okay, alright, 8 to 15. Experienced. 16 to 30. Seniors. Right, and 30 plus is, let's say, legends. Right, a legend and senior, and here we call them amateur. Okay. So we are. This is what we are trying to label our employees at. So we are going to create a report and an employee who has between 0 to 7 years of experience in the industry in this particular organization. We will label them as amateur, and similarly for 8 to 15, 16 to 30 and 30 plus, and so on. Right, so let's see how we can do that. So can we break it down into a few categories? Into smaller chunks like, can we do an if-else condition with, and what is the function for this? If I want to check whether the condition is true or not, what is the function for that? Boolean, right? Boolean, so absolutely correct. So let's create certain Boolean fields. How many Boolean fields do we want? Or how do we? How many Boolean fields do we have to create? For right, so field 1. Let's call it as field 1. The way we are doing it is, we are breaking it down, this requirement, into smaller chunks, right, so that we were able to identify what are the different calculated fields we are going to create just by looking at the requirement. If we start creating it, we will not be able to do it. We have to break it down into smaller pieces, right? So now field 1. What are we going to check? Let's say it is a Boolean field, like you said, and what are we going to do here? The years of experience. Yeah, years of experience. Years of experience, yes. Can we say greater than? Greater than or equal to 0. And you remember how we wrote the Boolean. There was a rule, right or thing right, and years of experience. Less than. Or equal to less than or equal to. 7. Correct, yes, right. This is how we can write it. Similarly for field 2. We will do the same thing. Field 2. I will just copy it here. So similarly, we will just keep building the same thing over. So here we will just change the parameters. Is greater than or equal to 8. And experience less than or equal to. What 15 right? Okay, similarly field 3 and field 4. So let's quickly do that. Creating in WorkDay is simple, but just identifying the logic is what is difficult. Okay, so 3, and we call it as before. The third one is greater than or equal to 16. And less than or equal to 30. Okay, now what about the next one? Greater than or equal to 30. It should not be 30. Let's make it 31 right, 31. Greater than or equal to 31. And do I have to specify less than or equal to not? Not necessary. Right. Okay, so what will this field 1, field 2, field 3, field 4 have? What will be the output? A Boolean field output is either true or false, like yes or no. We saw yesterday. It can be yes or it can be a no. So then what? What are we going to get from here? Answer will be yes or no, isn't it? So, but is that what we want? Do you want to? Yes, no kind of thing. We want amateur experience, senior legend, and we want to be able to do the series of calculations. Isn't it the series of calculations where we want? Okay, first check, is it 0 to 7? Is it 8 to 15? Is it 16 to 30? Is it 31 plus, isn't it? That is what so we want. If let's say somebody is 32 years of experience. So we have to do all these 4 calculations. Isn't it? So we have to do that. So now we have to identify. Okay, let's see. How are we going to put this all together into one single function? Right. The answer to that lies in evaluate expression. Evaluate expression, the one right here. Okay, it will allow you to include multiple if-else conditions or multiple condition checks into one calculated field. Okay, evaluate expression, that is. That is what we are going to learn today, a very, very powerful kind of calculated field. So what we will do is, after we create this, for fields. Right, we will put them in one big field. That is the eval expression. Okay, evaluate expression. And evaluate expression is like you write this, if-else condition. If condition 1 is true, do something. If condition 2 is true, do something else. If condition 3 is true, then do something else. And if none of the conditions are met, do a default thing. Right, that is what evaluate expression is all about. So first thing it says is, if the first condition is true, how do we do that? We put the Boolean field right. So the first condition would be, if field 1 is true, then what happens? If field 1 is true, then what do you need in the output? Amateur, right, you always want amateur. If the field 1 condition is met, you always want the word amateur, isn't it? So yeah, okay, how can we get it? We always want that fixed text, right? Amateur text, text constant. Perfect. Yes, so that means we have to create how many? 1, 2, 3, and 4 text constants, right? If field 1 is true, then we have another calculated field, which is a text constant, right? And what will be the field amateur? Similarly, field to field 3, field 4, and for each of the fields correspondingly, we should have a text constant. Right. So how many fields do we have to create? Do you think? 4 fields for these, for the true, false conditions, force, 3 fields for the text constants, and 1 field for the evaluate expression. So 9 different fields we have to create to achieve this particular thing. Thank you.